a lot of Hong Kong-based journalists who keep doing journalism and reporting, even sometimes on sensitive topics, but the level of risk is getting higher every day. And it's true that they must start considering, if they don't want to self-censor, that one day they might be, because they published some information the Hong Kong government deems sensitive, deems against the national security law, they might be accused of one of these crimes against the state. The situation of Hong Kong reporters is very difficult because they've been used to working in a free and open environment. They've been used to being able to express themselves and publish any information they found. And quite suddenly, in the span of a few years, they find themselves with the possible accusation of crime against the state for only imparting accurate and verified information. So now what do? They have the choice. They can leave Hong Kong for some of them. Unfortunately, not all of them can leave Hong Kong, but some of them can. But of course, it's very difficult because it means somehow not being able to cover Hong Kong the same way they did before. Or they have to stay, but day after day, the pressure is increasing and the risk is increasing for them and maybe in the future for their relatives. So it's a dilemma now. Hong Kong over the past decades was a territory where every journalist was able to investigate, to find facts, and to publish disinformation in the media. There were very few limitations, but over the past years, especially since Carrie Lam was put in charge of the territory, we have seen more and more limitations appear and more threats to these freedoms. We also have seen a crackdown on independent media, on the media that are symbolic of press freedom on the territory. Of course, the first one was Apple Daily, and the way the government almost overnight shut down Apple Daily was quite terrifying. They have repeated this. Some media don't even need the government crackdown because they are afraid. They are afraid for their staff. They are afraid for their shareholders. They are afraid for their board. So the purpose of this crackdown is to try and force the media to censor themselves, and this is very dangerous. We fear that in a couple of years there would be no more independent media in Hong Kong, and that foreign correspondents wouldn't be able anymore to report independently on Hong Kong. Disinformation, what people call fake news, is a real problem. It is threatening journalism, it is threatening democracy, but we have seen too many authoritarian governments use fake news as a pretext to just gag the media, gag reporters, and find a way to decide what is true information and what is false information. This is not acceptable. Every time press freedom recesses in Hong Kong, it's of course a very bad news for Hong Kong residents because it's harder and harder for them to inform themselves on the things that are important on the territory. But it's also a very bad news for all the Chinese people in China because Hong Kong somehow represents the highest level the Chinese people could ever expect for. And every time the Chinese government reduces press freedom in Hong Kong, it's somehow reducing the hope of that other Chinese people can have for press freedom somewhere else in China. And of course, this is also a loss for the world. The world needs to know what's happening in China. The world needs to know what's happening in Hong Kong. And we cannot tolerate, democracies cannot tolerate that the only source of information on China and Hong Kong will be the government. What the Chinese regime does currently does not only take place in Hong Kong or in the mainland, We see it. The national security law is a law that on the paper can be used against any journalist, no matter where they are located in. The Chinese regime is now attacking this freedom even in democracies. So it's about time that democracies react, that they choose their camp, and that they very firmly make the Chinese regime understand that they will not accept this any longer. We also have published a very big report, 82 pages report, that was translated in 12 different languages. The title of the report is The Great Leap Backwards of Journalism in China. It is quite scary. 1/3 of the report is actually dedicated to the situation in Hong Kong. And we hope that through this report, democracies will realize that they have to stop engaging with China the way they do. They have to stop accepting the Chinese regime's multiple violations of press freedom, and they have to start confronting this regime. They have to start forcing the regime to change its practices.
3、2、1，追新聞。